It was hot. It was really hot. She had to go to the community well at noon because nobody wanted to see her. Everyone else went to the well at cooler times of the day, in the early morning or in the evening. Nobody acknowledged her when they did pass on the road, and she did her best to avoid the other people in the village. She tried to pretend that this didn't hurt, but it did. They treated her as if she had some sort of disease, but she didn't. She was healthier than the rest of them. Was that it? Were the other women threatened by her beauty? By the fact that she always had a man in her house, even if she wouldn't accept their proposal of marriage? She was different. She knew that. She didn't want to be tied down. She never did. It felt like belonging to someone. She supposed she got that from her mother, or maybe from her father. He was a renegade and from a far-off country. Her mother used to tell her stories that involved horses twice as tall as she, silks that ran through your fingers like water, spices by the barrelful in the marketplaces, exotic, different, like she is, different, other, strange. Her mother had been a slave, bought by her father's family and then used by her father, who then fell in love with her. Though beaten down her entire life because of her status, her mother had lifted herself up and spat at his feet when her father offered her the title of his wife. Challenging a master by such an act was punishable by violence that might certainly lead to death, but she did it anyway. Her mother had had enough of being treated like an object. Though her mother had been bought and paid for, her mother knew that this was wrong. This was someone else's reality and not how people should be treated. Nobody can own another person. The woman knew as she approached the well in the sweltering heat that she could go back to trying to interact with the other women in the village, but it was painful to be rejected by them for something over which she had no control. She was beautiful. She was opinionated. She was strong. Why didn't they like her? She sighed as she approached the well, and then she saw. What was that? She stopped and she could not move. It was light. It wasn't the sun's light. It was different. Was it a reflection? No. It was light. It was real, pure, true light like she had never seen before. But it was somehow very familiar. And it stirred something deep inside of her. She felt shy all of a sudden, shy and excited, and a little bit afraid. When she found her confidence again, she took a few more steps toward the well. The light was coming from a tired, tattered-looking person who was sitting on a big rock by the well. As she moved closer, drawn to the beauty of this indescribable light, she saw that the person had a beard, a man. But though he looked like a man, he seemed to be more than a man. She could not look away. She had never felt this way before in her life. She was mesmerized. And then he spoke to her with the kindest voice she had ever heard. He asked her for some water. He was so calm, so collected, as if this was the most natural interaction. Was he always so nice to strangers? He asked a simple question. Why did she react the way she did? Why did she have to point out their differences instead of immediately helping this man who radiated light, helping and giving him what he asked for? He ignored her comment, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan. We aren't supposed to interact with each other." And instead he smiled at her, and her life was changed forever. It wasn't like some of the other changes that happened at other wells over the years. Rachel and Jacob, Moses and Zipporah, they all met at a well. Both couples married and went on to make history. Life-altering moments were had at the well. Hearts were awakened. Pulses skipped a beat, and love was in the air. Jesus knew the stories of these ancestors who met at wells. Perhaps they were even family lore. As a child, he may have eagerly awaited an elder relative's relating of that time when Moses was taken back to Jethro's house after meeting his beautiful daughter Zipporah as she watered the camel at the well. Probably after a while, Jesus could recite these stories by heart. Though Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well in our story today were not destined to marry, still there was love in the air. And Jesus was teaching about this love in new and different ways. He was teaching by example, embracing the stranger and the other in ordinary, kind ways. The old laws were not leading this one. Jesus was leading in love. We need this kind of love. We need it today here in Rochester, where we hear about gun violence and abuse every day. We need it in Nice, France, where people are reeling from another violent, deadly act of terrorism. We need it in our personal lives. We need this love to remind us that there is hope. There is always hope in God and in God's love and the words and actions of Jesus. We need to hear the stories of Jesus. Stories that tell us of the many ways Jesus reached out to those who were hurting, bringing them the love of God. Stories of the countless ways that Jesus has made this world a better place, inspiring us to feed, visit, and clothe those who are in need. Acts of loving kindness. Loving kindness that are reminders that Paul's words are not in vain. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Live this. Do not ignore the violence and the terror and the injustices, but do not let evil and violence overcome you and rule your life. It is important to be aware of what is happening around us. Being informed about the news keeps us in touch with other parts of the world, other parts of our city, our neighbors here and far, connected in love. We need to keep working, but we also sometimes need to rest and let God rejuvenate us. The world includes our near surroundings too. So pay attention to the news, but then turn it off and feel the quiet. Explore the beauty of your surroundings. Feel God's love. See how God is working in your life. Take a walk with a friend. Read a book. Play with your kids. Give back to this world the love that God has given to you. Live the stories of Jesus. Throughout our days, we are sometimes the one serving, and we are sometimes the one being served. Whichever situation you find yourself in, do your best to find Jesus in the other and in yourself. Be in touch with the ways God works in you, and honor and live those ways. Lately, it feels as if we are shown more of the bad and the disturbing of the world, and it can be overwhelming. But so is the love of God. God's love surrounds those who are hurting, those who are at odds with themselves and with their neighbors. Violent, unjust acts are not representative of God. Violence is not love. God is love. Love is God. Showing God's love to the stranger at the well, that is God. Being kind to one another and to ourselves, that is God. Acts of loving kindness, manifesting and sharing God's love in our lives, this is how we will survive this time of tumultuous chaos. I am going to close this morning with some of the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. This is how it goes. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. May it be so. Amen.